can actually less prep make your D&D sessions better. It sounds completely backward, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because, for so many dungeon masters out there, myself included sometimes, there's this little knot of anxiety, that little voice that says, if you don't plan everything down to the last cobblestone and the third guard's favorite type of cheese.
Yeah, the specifics.
Then your game is going to just, stumble. It'll feel aimless, maybe even grind to a halt and be utterly forgettable.
You picture those blank stares.
Yeah.
That awkward silence.
Exactly. Feeling completely lost at the table. That's the nightmare scenario.
And that fear is absolutely valid. I mean, it feels like chaos is this thing you have to constantly fight against. You build this fortress of notes.
Right, to ward off the unpredictable.
But what if?
Yeah.
What if that swirling storm of the unscripted, as the source material from LitRPG Reads we're diving into today calls it?
Yeah.
What if that's not something to fear?
What if it's actually the magic ingredient, the secret sauce?
Precisely. That's the core idea we're really going to unpack in this deep dive.
We're exploring this concept of no prep DMing. And, okay, this isn't about showing up unprepared in, a lazy way.
No, at all.
It's about showing up intentionally light on planning. Maybe you just have a loose premise, right? A core conflict, perhaps a couple of half-formed ideas.
The fragments, yeah.
And then you truly let the world, the story, the challenges, all of it spring to life during the session.
It gets built collaboratively, right there at the table, moment by moment, reacting to what you and your players are creating together.
Exactly. And this whole deep dive, really inspired by these insights from LitRPG Reads, it's designed to empower DMs, maybe empower you listening, to embrace that spontaneity.
Yeah, it's about trusting yourself, trusting your players, and discovering the story alongside them. The guide we've been looking at focuses on really practical ways to run games, especially D&D, that are, full of chaos, definitely, but also incredible creativity.
We're going to get into the nitty-gritty here. We're talking specific improvisational techniques that make this work, the simple tools that can act as a kind of safety net.
Not a straitjacket.
Exactly. And even how this whole mindset kind of shifts depending on whether you're running a quick one-shot or maybe a sprawling long-term campaign.
Right, different needs.
Our mission here is really to extract the most valuable nuggets from the source material. We want to show you how running D&D with, minimal upfront prep can actually lead to some of your most memorable games ever.
Okay, let's do it. Let's dive in. So, when you first think about no prep, maybe the most immediate thing, the most tangible benefit is just the sheer freedom you get.
Oh, yeah.
By throwing away your pages of prep, as the source puts it. Just imagine that feeling of relief.
It's huge. That liberation from the chains of a script you wrote hours or days ago.
And what's fascinating is how that freedom for you translates directly into the player experience.
Right. The source highlights this really cool concept of real-time collaboration. Players aren't just, walking through a pre-written story.
They're co-authoring it. Actively.
Yeah. They get this powerful sense that the world is dynamically, bending around their choices. So if they decide to check out that weird sound in the alley instead of going to the tavern you planned...
Which they always do?
Always. Then the alley suddenly becomes the focus. And whatever you conjure up right there feels like a direct result of that decision.
And that feeling that they're blazing their own trail, that enhanced player agency... It's incredibly potent.
Totally.
When you aren't glued to a specific plot, you can genuinely respond to their creative ideas, their weird actions, even their completely, wild plans.
That's where the special alchemy happens, right? The stories just unfold organically from the interactions at the table, the dice rolls, the spur-of-the-moment stuff.
Instead of you trying to force their choices back onto your pre-written track, you're not just facilitating anymore. You're reacting and building with them.
And that flexibility, it frees you up, too, beyond just following their lead. You shed that pressure, that feeling like you have to complete the adventure as written or perfectly execute your plot.
Yeah, if they get obsessed with some minor NPC you just invented.
Happens all the time.
You don't need to steer them back to your main villain. That NPC is now part of the adventure. You just follow that thread, see where it goes.
This is just so crucial for fighting DM burnout, which is, let's be honest, a very real thing in this hobby.
Oh, yeah. The traditional prep model, it can be incredibly time-consuming, draining. So by dramatically cutting down that workload between sessions, less time agonizing over balancing encounters, NPC motives, all those branching paths, you free up energy, enthusiasm for the actual game.
Yeah. The focus shifts, doesn't it? From trying to predict every possibility to just being present and asking what if right there in the moment.
Exactly. And the source makes a really strong point here. This approach fundamentally prioritizes player son and that spontaneous discovery over just, rigidly sticking to what you thought should happen.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. The authentic surprise.
Ah, yes.
The source calls this an underrated upside. When neither you, the DM, nor the players know exactly what's coming next. When the world is genuinely being made up as you go.
The surprise is real.
It is. You aren't pretending to be surprised by a twist you wrote last week. You are surprised. Your usual DM poker face just kind of dissolves.
And you get to revel alongside your group, like the source says. You're enjoying this shock and delight of new discoveries or unexpected turns right there with them.
You're discovering the story together.
That shared discovery is incredibly bonding. It creates those truly memorable moments. And, it forces you, as the DM, to stay incredibly nimble, constantly building, adapting. And that process, it builds confidence in your storytelling instincts. It sharpens your ability to read the room, sense the rhythm of the narrative, trust your gut reactions in the heat of the moment.
And that nimbleness, it's all about flexibility, isn't it? Which the source calls the natural enemy of stagnation.
It's a great phrase.
It is. Pre-planned adventures, sometimes they can feel a bit predictable, maybe boxed in, but running games off the cuff like this, it inevitably creates unique narrative detours, unexpected character interactions, weird situational challenges you just never would have thought of otherwise.
It invites risk-taking. It rewards adaptability from everyone at the table, and it just ensures that no two sessions, even if you're in the same world, are ever really the same.
Yeah, if we look at the bigger picture here, this approach keeps the game feeling fresh, unpredictable for everyone involved, session after session.
And it inherently emphasizes the journey, right? The choices the players make, the path they actually forge through the world, rather than just focusing on reaching some specific ending you decided on way back when.
The source actually lists a whole bunch of specific benefits that kind of branch out from these core ideas. Like, beyond the philosophical stuff, there are really practical advantages, like faster session startup.
Oh, huge.
Seriously, sometimes the biggest obstacle to actually playing is just the hours of prep beforehand. With minimal prep, you can just decide to play.
Right, you can basically show up with, I don't know, a cool monster idea and a vague location concept, and you're pretty much good to go.
And tied right into that, like we touched on, is no railroading or forced narratives, because you don't have that preset track.
Players are just inherently free to explore. Their choices genuinely matter.
Which naturally directly boosts enhanced player agency.
Yeah.
Their actions aren't just like minor variations on your theme, they're the fundamental drivers of the plot.
And that requires greater adaptability to player choices from you, the DM. Instead of saying no to a wild idea.
You're flexing, you're finding a way to weave it in.
Yeah, and that authentic surprise for DM and players we talked about. Man, that alone can make for some legendary sessions.
Definitely.
Plus, the really significant lower risk of DM burnout. Cutting down that between-session work makes the hobby actually sustainable, enjoyable long-term.
It also fosters heightened creativity for everyone, not just you. Players feel encouraged to be more creative in how they solve problems, how they interact, when they know their ideas actually have weight.
Which naturally leads to smoother handling of unexpected situations, since you're already kind of in that improv flow.
Surprises aren't disruptions.
Exactly, they're just more material to work with.
The result is this deeper collaborative storytelling experience. The players feel more ownership, the narrative feels genuinely shared.
That may be the most freeing part. Less pressure to get it right. You're not trying to live up to some perfect pre-written adventure novel.
No, you're just trying to have a fun, engaging time with your friends.
Which really encourages player engagement and ownership. When they feel like they're helping build the story, they're naturally way more invested.
It also makes it easier to introduce new players or ideas. You don't need to dump tons of lore on them up front. You build the world together as you play.
And honestly, a less stressed DM usually means more room for humor and in-the-moment jokes. The whole table atmosphere can just be more relaxed, more playful.
Yeah, absolutely. The source emphasizes that this ensures sessions remain fresh and unpredictable. No two games ever feel quite the same.
Which allows for freer pacing, follow the story's natural flow. The game moves at the speed the table dictates, not according to some preset schedule of scenes you wrote out.
It genuinely encourages yes and mentality at the table. That core improv principle, right? Building on each other's ideas instead of shooting them down.
Yes. And ultimately, it emphasizes the journey over a set outcome. The adventure is about the experience of navigating the unknown with your players, not just racing to a finish line you already drew.
What's really striking about that list is how interconnected all those benefits are. They really paint a picture of a different kind of game experience, less about perfect execution, more about like vibrant shared creation.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea that improvisational DMing isn't some kind of mystical talent, but it's actually a set of skills.
Okay.
The source is really clear. This is something you can practice, something you can hone.
Absolutely. And the most foundational skill, like the bedrock for everything else, has got to be active listening. Crucial. And this means going beyond just hearing the words your players say. It's about tuning into their tone, their theories, those casual throwaway lines.
Even just noticing what seems to get them excited or maybe a bit spooked in conversation.
You're basically harvesting inspiration constantly, on the fly. If a player jokes offhand that a friendly shopkeeper seems suspiciously helpful.
You hear that, you make a little mental note.
Yeah, and maybe later that shopkeeper does turn out to have a hidden agenda, makes the player feel super perceptive.
Or if they mention they missed that quirky goblin NPC from 3 sessions ago.
Boom! Guess who shows up in the next town?
Creative reframing is another huge one. This is about taking those moments where the session just goes completely off the rails.
Which it will.
Oh, it will.
Yeah.
And seeing them not as problems, but as opportunities. It's the art of saying yes to the unexpected, even when it feels totally chaotic.
And then quickly finding a way to weave that new thing, that weird player choice, that random encounter result into the story threads you already have going. Make it feel like it was meant to be.
Practice flipping surprises into assets. Like if you describe some random statue in a town square, just for flavor.
And your players spend the next 20 minutes investigating it.
Lean into it.
Yeah.
Decide right then that the statue has some weird magical property or it's tied to a local legend you just invented on the spot. That's creative reframing.
Consistency, maybe surprisingly, is also a key improv skill, even without tons of notes. The source calls it your invisible anchor.
Right. Because while you're making stuff up, you still need to keep a rough mental tally or maybe some quick jotted notes of the main facts you've established. Character motivations, loose plot threads.
You don't want to just blatantly contradict major things you said 10 minutes ago.
Developing little mini-systems can help a lot here. Maybe you keep a running list of names you've used, or you decide, okay, this region generally has this specific type of weather pattern, or a common local superstition.
Those small, consistent details make the improvised world feel more solid, more believable, even as you're literally building it brick by brick.
And then there's confidence. The Force called it the special sauce.
Yeah, I like that.
Nothing sells a sudden, improvised twist or a totally new encounter quite like just delivering it with conviction, even if, internally, you're still scrambling to figure out the details.
Projecting that confidence makes the players buy into the reality of the moment. They trust you.
So how do you actually build these skills? The Source's advice is pretty straightforward, but vital. Practice, experimentation, and just being willing to occasionally fumble in the name of fun.
Yeah, you're not going to be perfect the first time you try this, or the 10th time. You learn by doing. Throw stuff out there, see what sticks.
Trust your gut. Listen to how your players are reacting and let that guide you. The goal isn't some kind of flawless performance art.
No, it's about creating a dynamic, responsive, and just plain enjoyable shared experience.
Okay, let's look at some of the specific improv skills, the source lists. They give really concrete examples of what this looks like at the table. Naming characters, places, and organizations on the fly. That's maybe the classic improv challenge for a DM, right?
Oh, yeah. The dreaded, his name is Boblin moment.
Having a quick mental method or even just a list or a random table for names is a huge help. Keeps the energy up, avoids those long pauses. Describing environments with evocative detail. You need to paint a picture quickly, right? Just a few sensory details. The smell of damp earth, the sound of distant chanting, the oppressive heat.
And this one's crucial for collaboration. Reacting to player ideas with immediate buy-in. This is the heart of yes and. Don't shut them down. Take their idea and build on it.
Making callbacks to earlier events for continuity. This is how you give your improvised world a sense of history, of weight. Remember that weird cult symbol they saw? It shows up again on this new enemy.
Establishing consistent tone and atmosphere. Even while you're winging it, try to keep the overall mood generally consistent. Is this gritty and dark? Is it lighthearted adventure? Avoid those jarring tonal shifts if you can.
Flipping throwaway details into plot points. Pure active listening in action, right? Turning a player's random guess or a casual comment into actual narrative gold.
Adapting to sudden player turns or wild plans. Be ready to just toss out whatever vague idea you had 5 seconds ago and follow their lead, even if it seems completely insane.
Creating conflict with minimal information. You don't need a 20-page backstory for every bad guy. Sometimes he's the bandit captain and he wants the party's gold, is literally all you need to kick off an exciting encounter.
Managing pacing to avoid slow lulls. This is about reading the table energy. If things are dragging, introduce a sudden threat, a ticking clock, something to inject urgency.
Linking disparate player actions into a larger story. Find ways to connect things. Even if players pursue 2 totally different goals, maybe the artifact they found helps defeat the villain they accidentally provoked earlier.
Framing scenes with clear beginnings and endings. Even improvised scenes should feel like they have a purpose. They start, something happens, information is gained or the situation changes, and then they conclude, leading into the next thing.
Using broad archetypes as scaffolding, then customizing. Start with a generic concept, the grumpy blacksmith, the mysterious traveler, and then add specific, unique details based on how the players interact with them. Make them memorable.
Keeping improvisations within established logic. Try to stay consistent. If you establish that magic leaves a certain residue in this world, new spells should probably do that too. Minor retcons are fine, but avoid huge contradictions.
And finally, this one's key. Embracing moments of uncertainty and running with them. It is okay to not have the answer immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can describe something as deeply mysterious, or have an NPC react with confusion, or say, I don't know, figure it out later. Or maybe even ask the players, what do you think is happening here?
What's really cool here is that mastering these skills, it isn't about eliminating the unknown. It's about learning to, dance with the unknown.
Yeah, it transforms the challenge of improv from something scary into a source of creative energy for the whole table.
It really becomes a shared adventure in building the story itself. And that collaborative process keeps everyone engaged, keeps things feeling fresh and alive.
Okay, so building right on those skills, the source really hammers home how player input isn't just something you react to and no prep. It's the actual fuel that powers the whole engine.
Totally. Player-driven storytelling just absolutely thrives in this kind of environment.
Every little detail from a character's backstory, every wild theory a player blurts out about what's really going on, every casual observation they make about the world.
All of it is potential story material. You're constantly just harvesting their ideas.
The source gives this great example. Taking an in-game joke, right? Like a player's completely random line about a mysterious bakery cult.
And actually making it real, canonizing it, turning it into a genuine plot point or just a weird background element of the world.
Players love that. Seeing their own off-the-cuff creativity reflected back at them, validated within the game world. It's gold.
And testing player theories is such a powerful technique. If your players start suspecting that, I don't know, the Duke is secretly a vampire.
You don't have to immediately say, nope, wrong.
Right. You can drop little hints that maybe confirm their suspicions or cleverly twist them or reveal a different, even more surprising truth behind it.
When their ideas actually resonate with the reality you're building together, they feel incredibly clever. And they get deeply invested because their thinking mattered.
This is really where you see the DM relinquishing control in the best way, as the source puts it. You're not giving up your authority as DM.
No, you're just letting go of the need to be the sole driver of the narrative bus.
Yeah, you're actively listening, not just to their words, but listening for their genuine excitement. What threads are they pulling on? What parts of the world really seem to grab their interest?
Did a player make a character who's obsessed with finding lost dwarven artifacts? Well, guess what the next rumor they hear might be about?
Exactly. Or did they seem really interested in that weird type of slime monster you threw at them last session? Maybe a bigger, nastier version shows up. The source mentions weaving in hints tied specifically to, a paladin's family secrets or a wizard's academic curiosity about local ruins.
That kind of specific responsiveness makes players feel genuinely seen. It validates their character concepts, their interests. It makes the world feel incredibly rich and reactive.
Their character's personality and background aren't just, flavor text on a sheet. They're integral parts of the story that's unfolding right now.
And it's not just their stated interests either. The party's actions, even their mistakes, can dramatically shape things. If they decide to spare a captured bandit leader,
maybe that leader becomes an unexpected ally down the road. Or maybe they come back for revenge.
yeah, Or if a failed check to disarm a trap results in, like, a minor cave-in, don't just hand-wave it. Let the consequences of that single roll echo. Maybe it blocks off a path or alerts something deeper in the dungeon.
It's about being generous with those spotlight moments for the players. Reward their bold moves, their clever plans, even their spectacular screw-ups.
By letting those moments spin off into new scenes, new challenges, new relationships, you're using their input and their actions as the literal building blocks for what happens next. No pre-written script needed.
It creates what the source calls a virtuous cycle of engagement.
I like that.
Yeah, because players see that their ideas, their choices, their input has this tangible, immediate impact on the story.
They get even more invested. They start meeting you halfway, actively suggesting plots, potential villains, mysteries to investigate.
And that leads to the most dynamic, the most memorable games, where everyone at the table, including you, the DM, is genuinely surprised and delighted by how things unfold. It's co-creation unleashed.
The source gives a whole list of specific ways to turn player input directly into story beats, like canonize in-game jokes as plot elements, if the table laughed hard about it.
Make it real. That talking squirrel is now a key informant.
Make minor NPCs into returning cast based on player interest. If they really clicked with that grumpy guard or that overly cheerful potion seller.
Bring them back, give them a problem, or maybe they have crucial information.
Base an entire subplot on a player's dream or vision. Ask players occasionally, what did your character dream about last night? Then weave those images or fears into the game.
Ooh, creepy. I like it. Decide a town's fate on the outcome of a single roll. Raise the stakes. That check to persuade the council, or that roll to stop the ritual. Let the result have big consequences.
Take player suspicions and make some of them true. If they're convinced the barmaid is poisoning the drinks, maybe she is. Or maybe she's adding truth serum for a secret faction.
Let character backgrounds reshape local lore. If a character comes from a unique culture, maybe aspects of that culture pop up unexpectedly in the region they're exploring now. Shows the world is connected.
Reward risk-taking with new leads or discoveries. If they try something crazy and pull it off, don't just say, okay, you did it. Give them a bonus, a secret map, a valuable clue they wouldn't have found otherwise.
Turn party moral debates into real in-world dilemmas. If they're arguing about whether it's right to steal from the rich to help the poor, put them in a situation where they have to make that call and show the fallout.
Let failed skill checks create new complications. A failed stealth check isn't just, oops, they hear you. It's, oops, you alerted the specific guards who are watching for intruders trying to steal the artifact. Adds detail and consequence.
Use player gear choices to inspire magical discoveries. That weird non-magical amulet a player insists on wearing. Maybe it starts glowing faintly when they get near a hidden magical source.
Have rumors reflect what the party has done. As they travel, let them overhear people talking about their own exploits.
Yeah.
Maybe exaggerated, maybe completely wrong, but based on their actions?
Reintroduce old villains or rivals organically. That annoying bandit captain they humiliated sessions ago. Maybe he shows up working for the new big bad, seeking revenge.
Interpret player what-ifs as reality within the world. If a player muses aloud, man, what if that dragon wasn't guarding gold, but like a portal?
You can just go, you know what? That's exactly what it was guarding. Boom. Instant plot twist. Player feels brilliant.
Allow growing relationships to drive quest hooks. An NPC they've befriended comes to them desperate for help. Or that rival adventuring party they keep bumping into escalates things.
And finally, reference previous player heroics in local culture. Maybe a village they save now has a terrible statue erected in their honor, or kids play games based on their famous battle.
What all these points show is that inviting player ideas, it isn't about making your job harder. It's about cultivating this environment where everyone feels like a co-creator.
Yeah, it turns the game into this rich tapestry, right? Woven together with everyone's input and creativity.
And that process of shared invention, it just keeps the energy high and the story feeling incredibly vibrant and responsive.
Okay, but even when you're embracing zero prep in the, traditional sense, the source does note that having a few clever tools can seriously grease the wheels of improvisation.
Right, it's not about having absolutely nothing. It's about having just enough scaffolding, maybe, to support the spontaneous creation.
Absolutely. And random tables. They are your absolute best friend here. Encounter tables, NPC quirks, loot drops, random town events. Just rolling a die can give you that spark of inspiration when your mind goes blank.
Yeah, they're like a wellspring for creativity. as the source puts it.
You roll for what monster is lurking around the corner, what weird habit the new NPC has, what strange trinket the players find in a chest, or what sudden event like a freak storm disrupts the scene.
If it populates the world and generates ideas without you needing to have thought of them beforehand, just a quick roll and go.
Modular maps and tiles are also total lifesavers. Things like dungeon geomorphs, those pre-drawn rooms on cards, or even just index cards with location names or simple sketches. They give you just enough structure to lay out an area on the fly.
You don't need a huge, beautifully drawn battle map for every encounter. A few interlocking dungeon tiles or index cards you slap down labeled creepy altar room, flooded passage, orc barracks. Yeah, you arrange them as the players explore.
It gives you a visual space to describe and run the encounter in, and it lets you instantly pivot if the party decides to go left down the unexplored tunnel instead of right towards the room you vaguely pictured.
And simple note systems are pretty essential for rounding out this toolkit. As you're inventing names, places, NPC details, sudden plot hooks right there at the table. Jot them down quickly.
Yeah, use short bullet points, maybe on index cards, maybe a notes app on your phone or tablet like Evernote. This sort of living document is crucial for maintaining consistency, especially across multiple sessions.
Who was that merchant again? What was the name of that village with the weird talking animals? A quick note stops details from just vanishing into the ether and keeps the world feeling solid, even though it's improvised.
Let's look at the specific tools, the source lists, and how they help with on-the-fly improv. First up, the absolute classic, random encounter table.
Use it to roll to populate scenes as needed. Provides instant inspiration. You don't have to plan every fight. The table gives you something quick and relevant to work with.
An NPC name list helps you pick or roll a name for new characters. Crucial for speed, consistency, avoids those awkward pauses.
Modular map tiles for quickly assembling locations. Offers flexible environments. Great for dungeons, sure, but also city streets, forest paths, anything.
A plot hook generator lets you grab a quest or complication in a pinch, gives you fresh story beats when the players are milling around unsure what to do next.
Improv monster cards. Using generic stat blocks for monsters lets you assign stats or traits instantly. Ensures reasonably balanced encounters without frantically flipping through the monster manual for that specific creature's AC.
Index cards, perfect for recording key NPCs and clues. Enables easy tracking of those important improvised details during the session itself.
Setting vignettes, little short blurb for locations or events that provide quick world building. A sentence or two describing a unique tavern, a strange monument, a recurring weather phenomena. Instant flavor.
Dice-driven tables. Lets randomness dictate minor events. Leads to surprising twists. Maybe the weather suddenly changes, or they find a weird, unrelated object, or a patrol happens by.
Evernote note-taking app, essential for logging session highlights on the go. Absolutely crucial for continuity for future play, especially in campaigns.
And generic prop items, handing out little tokens objects for immersion, adds added focus and engagement. A cool-looking rock, a weird coin, a coded message you scribble on a card. Anything tactile makes an improvised moment feel more real.
These tools, they aren't meant to replace your improvisation at all. They're more like having a little cheat sheet or maybe a safety net.
Yeah. They provide just enough structure or inspiration to stop the game from stalling out, letting you focus your brain power on the creative, spontaneous stuff.
They just make the whole process feel smoother, more confident, even if you literally just pulled that monster name or that plot hook from a table 5 seconds ago.
Okay, so structuring a session when you don't have a pre-written roadmap. That might feel a bit daunting, right?
Yeah, how do you keep it from just meandering aimlessly?
Well, the source describes it less like building from blueprints and more like a dance you improvise in real time.
That's a good way to put it. It absolutely is a dance. You're not looking for scene numbers or chapter breaks from a book. You're looking for the natural act breaks as the story unfolds right there.
Like a big revelation, a major victory, or maybe a crushing defeat, a really intense role-playing moment. Those become your narrative milestones. They signal shifts in the story's focus or energy level.
You also need to develop an eye for recognizing rising tension. Are the players getting really suspicious of that one NPC? Are the consequences of their earlier actions starting to pile up? Are those sinister hints you've been dropping starting to accumulate?
Those signals tell you the stakes are escalating. A turning point, maybe a big confrontation, might be just around the corner.
And paying attention to the energy at the table itself is maybe the most critical part of improvised structure. Yeah. If players seem unsure what to do next, or the energy just feels like it's flagging, that's your cue. Introduce a ticking clock or pressing event.
Could be literal, like the ritual completes at midnight. Or more narrative, like the rival adventurers are closing in on the same prize.
Yeah, it injects urgency and gives them a clear, immediate goal.
And conversely, right, if players have just come through a huge dramatic fight or maybe a really emotional scene,
That might be the perfect time for some downtime, a chance to catch their breath, rest up, maybe roleplay some quieter character moments.
knowing when to ramp up the pressure and when to provide that breathing room, that's an improvisational art form in itself.
And satisfying scene conclusions are totally possible, even without planning them out. As players achieve a goal, or make a big choice, or overcome a tough obstacle, you can wrap up that mini-arc.
How? By rewarding their bold actions, maybe showing how this success connects back to something they did earlier, or by unveiling a new mystery that spins directly off from what just happened.
Thematic callbacks really help tie things together too. Revisit those symbols or phrases or concepts that emerged earlier in the session, or even sessions ago.
Every resolved thread isn't a dead end, right? The source says it's fertile ground for another problem or promise. Solving one problem often creates a new, interesting one.
Structuring an improvised session, at the end of the day, is about treating every moment as a potential crossroads. Each decision players make, each clue you reveal, spins off new possibilities.
You're guiding the energy, not forcing the path. Using gentle nudges, constantly responding to the cues you're getting from the players and the story as it evolves right there.
The source lists some specific ways you can build and escalate these narrative arcs in real time, like introduce a ticking clock scenario. Classic. Immediately provides focus and urgency.
Use player assumptions as foreshadowing. If players assume that creepy old wizard is evil, lean into it. Drop hints that suggest they're right, even if you hadn't planned it that way initially.
Evolve threats based on party fears. If they're clearly terrified of being ambushed in the dark, well, guess what kind of encounters start happening more often? Adapt to what scares them.
Tie subplots together with chance meetings. Have an NPC from one improvised quest bump into a character or location from another seemingly unrelated thread. Makes the world feel connected and alive.
Escalate conflicts as stakes grow. As the players get more powerful or more deeply involved in a situation, the challenges they face should naturally become more dangerous or complex. Raise the stakes.
Refresh the tension with surprising betrayals. Ooh, juicy. That NPC who seems so trustworthy, maybe they have their own agenda. Or an enemy might offer an unexpected temporary truce. Keeps players on their toes.
Bring back unresolved mysteries.
Yeah.
Don't just forget about that weird glowing orb they found 3 sessions ago and couldn't figure out. Have it reappear, maybe reacting to something new.
Let consequences build upon earlier choices. That decision they made hours or even days ago show the unforeseen ripple effects that are coming into play now.
Reveal hidden motives of NPCs as the session progresses. That friendly guide who's helping them navigate the jungle. Maybe you decide mid-session they're secretly looking for the same lost temple for their own nefarious reasons.
Shift allegiances or alliances suddenly. Have the local factions, the town guard, the thieves guild, whatever, have them react to the party's presence or actions in unexpected ways. Maybe yesterday's enemy is today's reluctant ally.
Add environmental changes to signal arc shifts. As the story gets darker or more intense, maybe the weather turns perpetually stormy or the vibrant forest starts looking blighted and sick.
Provide recurring symbols or motifs. Use repeated imagery or themes. Maybe a specific type of bird keeps appearing, or a certain rune symbol that gains meaning over time as the story unfolds.
Give characters personal stakes in unfolding crises. Find ways to connect the larger threat or conflict directly back to a player's backstory, their personal goals, or NPCs they care about. Makes it matter more.
Use dramatic entrances and exits for pacing. Have key NPCs arrive or leave at moments of high tension or significance. It punctuates the narrative beat.
And finally, drop hints about larger, world-spanning events. Even if the current adventure is local, suggest how it might connect to bigger things happening in the kingdom or the plains or whatever. Gives a sense of scale, even if you're just improvising those hints.
What this really shows is that improvised structure isn't a lack of structure. It's a fluid, responsive structure that emerges organically from the interaction at the table.
Yeah, it's all about tuning yourself into the rhythm and the energy of the game as it's actually being played.
It really celebrates that magic of interactivity, doesn't it? Where the narrative isn't some fixed script, but this living, breathing dance between everyone involved.
Now, while no prep DMing sounds amazing, and often is, it's not without its hazards, the source is pretty upfront about these potential pitfalls.
Right, gotta be realistic. The first one that probably jumps to mind for many, and it's mentioned explicitly, is inconsistent tone. If you're just making everything up on the spot, it can be easy to swing wildly from like super grim dark drama 1 minute to wacky slapstick comedy the next in a way that just feels jarring.
Yeah, whiplash. So you need to try and maintain a core mood or atmosphere for the session or the arc, and gently nudge things back if they start to feel completely off-key for the game you're trying to run.
Underdeveloped characters or world details are another potential trap. If every NPC feels like a cardboard cutout, or every location is just described as a cave or a town.
The experience can feel kind of hollow, right? Flat.
Exactly. So you need to seize those opportunities in the moment to add striking, memorable traits or specific quirks to the people and places the players encounter. Even one strong detail can make a difference.
Aimless wandering is a really common one.
Yeah.
Especially if players are used to being handed a very clear quest marker on a map.
Yeah. If they lack a strong immediate motivation or a clear problem to solve right now, they might just drift, mill about.
You avoid this by always being ready to plant dynamic goals, offer rewards, drop urgent rumors, tie events back to their personal stakes whenever that momentum starts to slacken. Give them something to react to.
Contradictory world building can also creep in easily when you're inventing details constantly.
Oops, did I say the king had 3 sons last session? Because I just mentioned his only daughter.
Exactly. Keeping those quick notes we talked about earlier really helps prevent this. And also just being ready to retcon sparingly.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to say, oh, you know what, I misspoke earlier. It's actually like this. A minor correction is usually fine. Better than letting a huge plot hole fester.
Setting clear but flexible boundaries is important too. Even though you're improvising, the world still needs some rules, right? And choices need to have some kind of stakes.
Provide enough context and consequence that player decisions feel meaningful, but stay open to adapting the narrative based on whatever crazy thing they decide to do.
The source actually suggests maybe being transparent with your players about the improvisational nature of the game.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, letting them know you're building this together can sometimes buy a little grace if you have minor continuity hiccups. They're often more invested in the collaborative fun than in catching you out on tiny details.
That makes sense. Finally, watch out for repetitive encounters or just falling back on overused tropes as a crutch.
Right. If every other scene is just roll initiative, random goblins attack, or every new town features the exact same mysterious hooded stranger in the corner of the tavern.
It gets predictable. Boring, even. You got to lean into the unique ideas generated by your specific table, by your players, to create fresher, more surprising situations.
Okay, let's run through the specific pitfalls listed and the ways to sidestep them. Inconsistent tone, tackle that by learning to set and uphold a core mood. Decide what feel you're going for.
Forgetting key NPC names, easily fixed by keeping a running list. Just jot them down as you say them.
Contradictory lore, avoid this by simply noting major facts as they emerge. Don't need a novel, just the big stuff.
Underdeveloped characters, counter this by actively adding quirks and motives immediately. Give them one memorable trait or a simple desire right away.
Aimless wandering, prevent this by always being ready to offer fresh hooks or goals when the players seem lost.
Over-reliance on combat. Address this by consciously varying encounter types. Mix in social challenges, puzzles, exploration, traps, environmental hazards.
Too many unresolved threads. Mitigate this by making an effort to tie up or at least revisit plot lines you introduced earlier, rather than just constantly starting new ones. Weave things together.
Losing track of party goals, fix this by simply recapping objectives regularly. Quick reminder at the start of the session or after a major event.
Letting downtime drag, avoid this by prompting with new dilemmas or interesting character interactions during those rest periods. Keep things moving, even slowly.
Ignoring player agency, this is a huge pitfall. Sidestep it by celebrating their impact on the world. Make sure their choices visibly matter.
Neglecting to escalate stakes, address this by consciously remembering to ramp up complications gradually as the players get stronger or deeper into the plot.
And falling back on cliches, counter this by deliberately embracing the unique, table-driven ideas that emerge from your specific group's crazy brains.
What this section really drives home is that successful no-prep isn't about being flawless. It's about being aware of the common challenges and having simple strategies ready to navigate them.
Yeah, you transform those potential missteps into opportunities for more on-the-fly innovation and fun. It's about learning to ride the waves, not getting totally wiped out by them.
Now, the source makes a really comforting point here, which I appreciate. There's no shame in a few backup cards stashed up your sleeve.
Phew. Okay, good.
Right. No prep doesn't mean you have to show up with literally nothing. It's about keeping a light structure, keeping those improv muscles limber, but not trying to do it all from absolute zero every single time.
Exactly. Having a small pool of just loose ideas, ready a list of cool fantasy names you like, maybe an old map layout you never got around to using, a basic conflict trope like two factions fighting over a sacred grove that can smooth over those moments where you might otherwise just freeze up.
Yeah, they let you focus your mental energy on the spontaneous fun part, not on desperately trying to invent a plausible NPC name under pressure.
Think of these little backups as scaffolding, not shackles. They're not there to force the players down a specific path. They're just there to ensure you always have something to fall back on, something to riff off of if you need it.
Like having 3 quick NPC concepts ready, maybe the gruff but fair guard captain, the nervous, twitchy merchant, the serene, cryptic hermit, or a couple of evocative location descriptions you can drop in the ancient, bone-littered catacombs, the bustling, noisy docks at dawn.
Or even just a basic conflict triangle. The villagers desperately need the magical spring water, the territorial griffins guard the spring, and a greedy wizard wants to harness the spring's power for himself. Just having that simple setup gives you instant tension and potential plot hooks for any location.
Used judiciously, like the source says, these little just-in-case tools help you pivot smoothly when the players zig where you thought they'd zag, or when you just hit a temporary mental block.
They support the spontaneity without undermining the core spirit of improvisation. You reach for them because you need a quick spark, not because you're trying to follow some hidden plan.
And the crucial thing is, they are often invisible to players but invaluable to you.
Right. The players don't know you just grabbed that town name from a list you prepped last week, or that this dungeon layout is from a module you read years ago.
To them, the world is just appearing organically, moment by moment. These tools act as a kind of silent engine running in the background,
allowing you to focus entirely on listening, reacting, adapting, engaging with what the players are actually doing. The result feels effortless to them.
The magic of that collaborative spontaneity is completely intact, even if you had a few little helper notes in your back pocket.
Okay, let's look at the specific low-prep elements the source suggests having on hand that still feel spontaneous to the players. First, reusing an old map with a new spin.
Got a cool dungeon map or a town layout or even a region map you never got to use? Grab it. Populate it on the fly with creatures, traps, NPCs, and treasures relevant to this adventure. The layout is just a canvas.
Keeping 3 NPC names on hand. Literally just 3 names written on a sticky note. Instant identity for the first few new characters the players inevitably bump into.
Sketching a quick conflict triangle. Who wants what, and what or who is starving them? Having this basic framework ready helps define immediate tensions and goals in almost any scene you start.
Having a random trinket or magic item table ready. When players search a body or dusty chest or a monster's lair, roll on it. Instant, surprising, often weird treasure. Much more fun than just 50 gold pieces.
Carrying a list of location prompts. Short, evocative phrases like a bridge guarded by statues that seem to watch you, or a tavern built inside the hollowed-out shell of a giant crab. Instant flavor for scene settings.
Preparing several generic stat blocks for monsters. Instead of needing the exact stats for every single creature, have a few basic templates ready. Maybe tough brute, quick skirmisher, sneaky archer, minor spellcaster. You can apply these stats to whatever monster you invent on the spot.
Concealing 1 or 2 iconic town features for random use. Think of a couple cool, memorable features a town built atop giant mushrooms, one where gravity works strangely, one famous for its clockwork birds. Keep these in your back pocket and drop one into any town description for instant uniqueness.
Noting 3 potential plot hooks in advance. Just 3 simple starting points. If the players are totally lost, you can offer. You hear rumors of strange lights seen in the old ruins. A merchant posts a reward for finding their missing caravan. You find a cryptic message tucked inside your boot.
Stalking a deck of weird rumors for quick inspiration. Write down like 10 or 20 really short, strange rumors on index cards. For example, they say the fish in the river can talk. Someone saw the mayor digging graves at midnight. The baker uses goblin flour. When players ask, what's the gossip? Draw one.
Creating rough relationship webs for party NPC ties. Just quick notes like guard captain owes player A a favor, or NPC X secretly hates NPC Y, helps quickly define social dynamics and potential plot hooks.
Drafting short village or dungeon descriptions. Not full maps, just maybe a paragraph or a few bullet points describing the general feel and a few key features of a typical forest, cave system, or farming village you might need quickly.
Saving a couple of evocative music tracks or sound effects. Have them bookmarked or downloaded, ready to drop in for instant atmosphere at key improvised moments, a creepy ambiance, a sudden battle fanfare.
These subtle little supports are like having training wheels, maybe. They prevent the game from just grinding to a halt or feeling completely shapeless.
Yeah, they allow you to maintain momentum and weave a reasonably cohesive narrative without compromising that core spontaneity that makes no prep so exciting.
That balance, right, between just enough structure and maximum improvisation. That seems key to making the unpredictable feel both thrilling and cohesive for everyone.
Now, the source points out something important. No prep play kind of wears different masks, depending on whether you're running a single session, a one-shot, versus a long-term campaign. The approach needs to adapt a bit.
Right. One-shots, as we've sort of touched on, they really thrive on immediacy, don't they?
Totally. You can be incredibly bold, push the boundaries, aim for a really punchy resolution all in one sitting.
The compressed time frame means there's just less pressure on deep, long-term continuity. You can let chaos reign a bit more freely, experiment with wilder concepts because you don't have to worry as much about the long-term consequences.
And the pacing in a one-shot naturally encourages that breakneck action.
Yeah.
You're moving fast, scene to scene, aiming for a dramatic climax and a satisfying wrap-up within just a few hours. The emotional stakes are often right there on the surface, intense, explosive.
Campaigns, though, that's a different beast when you're improvising. They demand more careful attention over time.
Yeah, the accumulating weight of character growth, those evolving relationships between PCs and NPCs, the world details you've established, consistency becomes much more critical.
You have to be more deliberate in weaving recurring motifs, bringing back those NPCs the players loved or hated, making sure the stakes and consequences feel like they make sense across many, many sessions.
Improvised campaigns become this fascinating balance of continuous invention and gentle curation. You're still inventing constantly in the moment.
But you're also curating those moments, looking for ways to connect them, build on things that happened sessions ago, ensure the overall narrative feels like it's progressing and evolving in a meaningful way.
And the pacing in a campaign naturally shifts to more of an alternating tempo. You still have those moments of intense action and high drama.
But they're balanced by quieter periods. Time for exploration, investigation, political maneuvering, just character development and role-playing.
The emotional stakes tend to build more gradually, too. They're gradual, cumulative, woven into the player's long-term personal journeys and their investment in the world.
The nature of those fallback elements we talked about changes too, doesn't it?
Yeah. In a one-shot, those random tables or quick plot hooks are often just fuel for the fire. Quick ideas you throw in to see what sparks next.
Whereas in a campaign, they're more like a safety net for the long journey. Elements you might introduce improvisationally, but then deliberately revisit or expand upon in future sessions to provide continuity and depth. That random NPC might become a recurring quest giver.
Let's quickly run through the comparison table from the source because it highlights these differences clearly. Both formats share player-driven decisions and using modular ideas or tools. That's the common ground.
But the prep fallback needs differ significantly. For a one-shot, you might just need a loose, scene-based structure idea and some spare names, maps, basic stuff.
While for campaign, you absolutely need to prioritize things like making callbacks, recurring NPCs, and keeping robust session notes tracking to maintain that crucial continuity.
The challenge type in a one-shot is usually immediate, punchy. Get in, face the problem, get out.
Whereas in a campaign, it's evolving, layered, with problems unfolding over arcs, changing based on player actions.
The pacing style for a one-shot. Fast, dramatic, keep things moving towards the climax.
For a campaign, that alternating tempo, mixing intense beats with slower burns, exploration, social stuff.
Emotional stakes in a one-shot. Often intense, explosive, designed for quick impact within the session.
In a campaign, more gradual, cumulative, building over many sessions as players get invested in their characters and the world.
Responsiveness to actions in a one-shot often uses flexible frameworks, loose scenarios you can adapt quickly.
While in a campaign, it relies heavily on quick improvisation, combined with diligently tracking previous events and consequences.
Narrative continuity is minimal needed for a one-shot, just makes sense within that single story.
But for a campaign, you absolutely must track growth, Characters leveling up, world state changing, plot lines resolving or spawning new ones.
World building in a one-shot, typically only essentials. Just what's needed for the specific story.
In a campaign, it fills in over time through that collaborative invention and minimal scaffolding. The world grows richer and deeper as you play.
Player buy-in for a one-shot needs to be focused, high energy for that short duration.
In a campaign, it's all about fostering sustained engagement over potentially months or even years.
Shared creative ownership in a one-shot might use ready hooks rumors just to get things rolling quickly.
In a campaign, it strongly involves the DM making sure to tie up loose ends and consciously revisit player-generated plot points or character goals.
Plot resolution for a one-shot is ideally complete by end, self-contained.
While in a campaign, it's inherently ongoing, unresolved. Arcs might conclude, but the larger narrative keeps going.
The surprise factor is often hyper-seen in a one-shot, with lots of quick, impactful twists possible.
In a campaign, it tends to be high per arc, with larger, more significant twists unfolding over longer periods.
And for the DM also being surprised, which is part of the fun, a campaign benefits immensely from using prior session aid notes to remember all the stuff you improvised last time.
Yeah, you need those notes to keep track of your own spontaneous creations in a campaign.
So the choice between doing no prep for one-shots versus campaigns really just depends on your goals, your DMing style, and your table's dynamic, right?
Exactly. Both formats offer incredible potential for truly unforgettable stories when you lean into improvisation and really empower your players. It's just about adapting your improvisational style and the kind of light scaffolding you use to fit the scope and rhythm of the game you're running.
Okay, so wrapping things up then. The source material really brings us to this powerful conclusion. Stripping away all that extensive, premeditated planning, it leaves you with something incredibly potent. It leaves you with pure, unfiltered adventure.
Yeah, and it reframes it beautifully. It's not about being lazy or irresponsible as a DM. It's framed as an act of trust, a leap of faith into the nebula of shared imagination.
You're trusting yourself, your instincts, you're trusting your players to bring amazing ideas, and you're trusting the creative process itself to generate something cool.
And you have to be okay with the fact that, yeah, not every single improvisation is going to be a stroke of pure genius.
Oh, definitely not. There will be fumbles. There will be awkward pauses while you think.
But each moment is also alive, electric, with possibility. The imperfections are almost part of the authenticity, part of the charm.
The source makes this really crucial point that directly counters that initial DM anxiety we talked about at the start. Most games do not require a masterfully orchestrated plot to be truly magical.
Right, the immediate responsive nature of discovering things together, building the world in real time at the table. That can absolutely rival and often even exceed the feeling of playing through some meticulously designed, pre-written adventure.
Trusting your instincts, listening intently to your players, responding honestly to whatever they throw at you, that's how you create those moments that genuinely surprise and delight everyone at the table, including you.
Shared creativity. The Force calls it the secret heart of role-playing. And it's so true. The absolute best stories, the ones people talk about years later, they often emerge not from the DM's carefully crafted notes,
but from the wild, unexpected, sometimes hilarious, sometimes deeply moving ideas tossed out by the players and woven into the narrative right then and there on the fly.
Embracing that chaos,
Yeah.
being willing to let go of your own precious plans sometimes, and actively inviting your players to help write the world with you. That unlocks a style of play that the source confidently says never gets old.
So if you're listening and maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by prep, or perhaps your games have started to feel a little stale, a little predictable,
The source basically encourages you. Just try it. Try a no prep session. Maybe start small with a one-shot. Trust your table, trust your own instincts, and just see what incredible story you can build together from that raw material of chaos and laughter.
there's this beautiful, almost poetic line in the source material. Magic doesn't live in the margins of a spreadsheet. It lives in the living, breathing connection between players and DM.
That's lovely. And it brings us to the final, really provocative thought from the source. Chaos is not the enemy, it's the canvas. With every unscripted twist, every unexpected player success or hilarious failure, every player idea you decide to run with. You and your group are creating something truly unique together. You're painting on that canvas of the unknown. Don't shy away from it.
The source argues, pretty persuasively I think, that the reckless bravado of no prep DMing just might lead you to the most memorable adventures of all. Something definitely worth considering for your next game night, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Food for thought?
Well, that was a truly fascinating deep dive into the wild world of running Dungeons and Dragons with minimal or even zero prep, and we drew really heavily on the fantastic insights provided by LitRPG Reads, so a huge shout out to them.
Yes, definitely.
And specifically to Paul Bello, a fine fellow indeed, for the source material that really gave us the foundation for this whole conversation.
It's a perspective that really shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from the burden of anticipating everything toward just being present, being creative in the moment, empowering DMs to trust that collaborative process at the table.
It really does. And hey, we would absolutely love to hear your experiences with this. Are you a no prep DM already? Or maybe low prep? What are your favorite tips or tricks or tools?
Yeah, or what's a truly memorable, completely spontaneous moment that happened in one of your games that you never, ever could have planned?
Please share your stories, drop them in the comments, or wherever you engage with the show. We'd love to read them.
Thanks so much for diving deep with us today into the beautiful chaos of improvised storytelling.
Until next time.